Well, hi everyone, I'm Cameron Maclean and I'm a PhD student here at the University of Glasgow. And today we're going to be having a look at some of the coins of Mary Queen of Scots in the collection of the Hunterian. Now, instead of covering the entirety of Mary's coinage or providing a play-by-play recount of her reign, I want to instead show a select few coins from the Hunterian and explain how they illustrate the various events and changing circumstances of Mary's reign. So coins are an amazing medium through which to do this, because as I hope I'll be able to show you by the end of this presentation, Mary's life really does play out on her coinage. But first, I just want to go over the Hunterian's holdings themselves. So there are just under 900 coins of Mary Queen of Scots that are held by the Hunterian, and these primarily come from 3 separate collections. The earliest is the collection of William Hunter, which was donated in 1783. Now, Hunter was an 18th century anatomist and physician, and he assembled a coin collection of over 30,000 coins and medals, and these ranged in date from about 600 BC all the way up to coins struck during his own lifetime. And it has actually been claimed that Hunter's coin collection is the finest ever put together by a private individual. And his entire collection, which didn't just consist of coins, forms the foundation of the Hunterian Museum, which is named in his honour. And in total, it contains 73 coins of Mary Queen of Scots. The next group of coins is the collection of W.J. Cuthbert, who was a Perth-based solicitor who collected coins and maps. And his coin collection was donated to the Hunterian in 1999. And it contains 27 coins of Mary Queen of Scots. And the most recent and by far the largest is the collection of Lord Stuartby. Now, Lord Stuartby was one of the preeminent experts on Scottish coinage and the most prolific contributor to the field. He extensively published on the subject from the 1950s up until his death in 2018. And Stuartby gifted his collection of Scottish coins to the Hunterian in 2017. It's the largest collection of its kind ever assembled by a private individual. And rather incredibly, it actually contains about a quarter of all the Scottish coins that remain in existence, and 750 of these coins are of Mary Queen of Scots. So throughout this presentation, what I've done is I've noted the source of each of the coins that we'll be looking at. So numismatics is the study of coins, tokens, medals, and other related objects. And what I've stuck a ducat coin of Mary's father, King James V, up on the screen, and I just want to use it to explain some numismatic terminology. So the two sides of the coin are referred to as the obverse and the reverse. The obverse, which is the image on the left here, is the side that contains the monarch's name. And so we can see on this coin that King James V himself is depicted, and he is named as James V by the grace of God, King of Scots. And the reverse, which is the image on the right, is just the other side of the coin. So the inscriptions on coins are referred to as the legend, and on the coins struck in the British Isles, this legend is almost always in Latin. So throughout this presentation, what I've done is I've transcribed the legends and provided an English translation for each of the coins that we're looking at. Now, depending on the size of the coin, the legends can sometimes be abbreviated. So what I've done for this example is I've placed the abbreviated letters in the obverse legend in brackets for this coin, but I won't be doing it throughout the presentation. It's just to give you an idea of what can be done. But as you can see in this case, much of the obverse legend has been abbreviated down. So Rex, which is a Latin word for king, is just rendered as R in this coin. So the obverse legend lists the monarch's name and titles, and the reverse legend usually has the location of the mint where the coin was produced, such as in Edinburgh or Stirling, or another message which is often derived from the Bible. So the legend on this coin reads, "The king's power loveth judgment," which is a quote from Psalm 99. And it's also just worth remembering at this time that coins aren't just currency, but they also serve as symbols of power, legitimacy and authority, and they're also used as mediums of propaganda. So the coins of Mary's reign are catalogued into 5 different periods, and these periods are based upon her marital status at the time. I've listed all 5 of them up on the slides, and we'll be going through them all today. So James V, whose gold ducat we've just seen, died when his daughter Mary was just 6 days old, and as a result of her age, Scotland would be ruled on her behalf for much of her reign by 2 people. And these 2 people were James Hamilton, Earl of Arran, who was governor of the realm from 1543 until 1554. And the position of governor effectively gave him the powers of a near king. And the other was Queen Mary of Guise, who was the mother of Mary Queen of Scots. So Arran formally resigned the governorship in April 1554. And Guise ruled as Queen Regent from then on, and this was a position that she held up until her death in 1560. Now, the coins issued during the regencies of Arran and Guise usually bear the symbols of their authority, and these symbols take the form of the heraldic family emblems. So Regent Arran, you would use the cinquefoil, which we can see on the left here, and I suppose it sort of looks like a 5-pointed star or spur shape, and it's often depicted with a hole in the center. And Mary of Guise used the cross of Jerusalem, which is just a large cross with a smaller cross in each quarter, and the cross of Lorraine, which is a cross with 2 crossbars. So coins struck during the Arran Regency feature the cinquefoil, and we can see that on this gold 20 shillings coin on the left, which was struck during the first year of Mary's reign. And this coin names Mary as Queen of Scots on the obverse and features the cinquefoil of the Earl of Arran beneath Mary's MR monogram on the reverse. And this MR monogram stands for Maria Regina, which is Latin for Queen Mary. And Arran's iconography also appears on this penny on the right. So Arran's cinquefoil can be seen in 2 of the quarters of the cross, which is on the reverse there. And it's just worth noting while it's here that this penny from 1547 is actually the very first of Mary's coins to actually depict her. And she was about 4 years old when it was struck. So in response to the Scottish Parliament nullifying the treaties of Greenwich in 1543, Henry VIII ordered an attack on Edinburgh and the surrounding area in May of 1544. Now, during this time, Queen Mary of Guise and her daughter Mary Queen of Scots were safely based in Stirling Castle. Now, as Arran was unable to repel this assault, Guise and her supporters ordered Arran to resign the Regency of Scotland to her. Now, she was ultimately unsuccessful in doing this, and she had reconciled with Arran by early 1545. But during during the attempted taking of power, Guise struck Bobby coins in sterling, and they differ substantially from the bobbies that were struck by Arran. So on the left, we can see the bobby struck under the authority of Regent Arran throughout his period of regency, and it features a crowned saltire with a cinquefoil on either side on its reverse. And the bobby on the right was struck under Guise's authority in sterling in 1544. And it features instead it features a cross of Jerusalem on its reverse, which is one of her family emblems. And what's interesting about these coins is that Regent Arran actually attempted to suppress them. And I think this just highlights the importance that coins played as symbols of authority and as mediums of propaganda, since Arran was effectively trying to remove the coins that promoted his rival from circulation. Now, these gold 44 shilling coins were struck late in the Arran Regency, and they both feature an I and a G on them, and this stands for Jacobus Governator, or Governor James. So the coin on the left is the earliest of them to be struck, and it features an IG on the obverse, flanking the crowned royal arms, and an IG on the reverse, which flanks a crowned Maria Regina monogram. So that's what all of those compressed letters there spell out. Now, very few of them remain in existence today, and that's because it was soon replaced by the coin we can see on the right, which features the IG on the obverse as before. But if we look at the reverse, the IG has been replaced by cinquefoils. next to Mary's monogram instead. Now, we'll never really know why this was done, but it has been posited that the placing of Arran's initials alongside the royal monogram could have been seen as a step too far, so the design was quickly modified. So in April of 1554, Arran formally resigns the governorship of Scotland, and he is replaced by Mary of Guise, who rules as Queen Regent until her death in 1560. So this test-down coin up on the screen was struck during the Guise Regency. And so as you can see, Arran's cinquefoil has been removed from the design and replaced with symbols of the Queen Regent. So this coin on its reverse features the Cross of Jerusalem as the most prominent design feature there. So in 1548, Mary Queen of Scots is sent to France, and it was agreed that in return for French military aid, that she would marry eventually the heir to the French throne, Dauphin Francis. Now, the Dauphin was just the title that was traditionally granted to the heir to the French throne. So Mary married Francis on the 24th of April, 1558. And this made Mary, by virtue of her marriage, the Dauphiness of France, and it made Francis the King Consort of Scots, or Scotland. And the coinage was updated to reflect this. So if we look at this test-down, we can see that Francis and Mary are now titled as King and Queen of Scotland and Dauphin and Dauphiness. And the royal arms have been changed too. So on the left, we have the arms of Francis as a Dauphin and King Consort of Scotland. And on the right, we have Mary's arms as Queen of Scots. And the reverse legend, which reads, "He has made both one," refers to their marital union. And the symbols of the Queen Regent also appear on this coin. So if we look at the obverse, we can see that the royal arms have a cross potent behind them. And this is just one of the component crosses of the Cross of Jerusalem. It's just that because they're obscured by the shield of arms, it's not been possible to depict the 4 smaller crosses in each quarter. And the Cross of Lorraine also appears on each side of the crowned FM monogram on the reverse. And this just stands for Francis and Mary. So by 1560, the situation in Scotland and France had changed drastically. And these changes are reflected in the coins that were first struck in 1560. So Henry II of France died in July of 1559, and Francis, as Francis II, succeeds him as King of France. Now, due to her marriage to Francis, Mary becomes Queen of France, and this is reflected on the coins. So as you can see on this one, Francis and Mary are named as King and Queen of France and Scotland, and the conjoined arms of Scotland and France now appear on the coin itself. And also, if we look at the reverse, flanking the crowned FM monogram, we find the crowned fleur-de-lis and a crowned thistle, and these are just the national emblems of the two kingdoms. Now, in June of 1560, Mary of Guise died, and as a result, we can see that her symbols have been completely removed from this coin. Now, the death of Queen Regent Guise paved the way for the Protestant lords of the congregation to take power, and in August of 1560, the Scottish Parliament passed legislation that made Scotland officially Protestant, and it's thought that the influence of this can also be seen on this coin. So the reverse legend reads, "The Lion of the tribe of Judah hath prevailed," and this has been interpreted as referring to the Protestant lords' victory over Catholicism. So before the year's over, Francis II dies in December, which left Mary widowed for the first time. But these coins that you can see up on the screen, they continue to strike them into the following year, even though they named Francis as King of France and Scotland. So this test-down that we can see now is the very first coin to be struck that reflects Mary's status after being widowed. And what's interesting about it is Mary wrote to the French Mint. I mean, she was still in France at this point, and she wrote to the French Mint in February of 1561. So that's 6 months before she returned to Scotland. And she requested that they make the dies for her new Scottish coinage. So this coin was designed by Antoine Brocher of the Paris Mint, and then the dies were then brought to Scotland and used to make the coins at the Edinburgh Mint. And it's, I think it's notable that just months prior to her return, And only shortly after the death of Francis II, Mary was already redesigning her coinage in preparation for her return to Scotland. And this could arguably demonstrate that she understood the importance of using coinage to promote her image once she returned home. Now, Marion Archibald, who was a coin curator and scholar at the British Museum, claimed that coins were the most significant form of mass media available to Mary. And I think in this coin, we can see Mary taking full advantage of this media to promote her image after her return. So on the obverse, we have what is widely considered to be Mary's most skillfully executed coin portrait. And also, due to the changing circumstances, Mary is now simply referred to, again, as just Mary, Queen of Scots. And then the reverse shows her arms as both Queen of Scots and Queen Dowager of France. So in July of 1565, Mary married Henry Stuart, Lord Darnley, and proclaimed him as king. And a silver real coin was issued to celebrate the marriage. Now, the Hunterian doesn't actually have one of these in its collection, so the image on the slide instead is a plaster cast of a specimen that's currently in the British Museum. And this cast comes from the collection of Joan Murray. And I'm going to go on a wee bit of a tangent, but Joan Murray is quite an interesting figure. So during World War II, she worked as a code breaker at Bletchley Park, and she helped to crack Nazi Germany's Enigma code. And she was also briefly engaged to Alan Turing at this time. And if you've ever seen the movie The Imitation Game with Benedict Cumberbatch, where he plays Alan Turing, Joan Murray is actually portrayed in that movie by Keira Knightley. But anyway, after the war, she developed an interest in Scottish numismatics and made many contributions to the field. And much of this was done in cooperation with Lord Stuartby, and we've seen some of his coins earlier in the slide. But anyway, the Hunterian holds a number of her coin casts, and this is one of them. But as you can see, this coin depicts both Henry and Mary, and the reverse legend refers to their marital union. And this actually caused outrage at the time because it placed Darnley's name in front of Mary's in the legend, and this implied that he was superior to her. So as a result, it was quickly removed from circulation. And this was done so successfully that there now remain only two known specimens in existence. One is in the British Museum, of which this is a cast of, and the other is in the National Museum of Scotland. And I think the one in the National Museum of Scotland might be on display, but I've not been in years, so I can't confirm. Now, and also, while the Hunterian doesn't have a real example of this coin in its collection, there were two extremely similar medals on display in the exhibit, which more or less replicate this design with a few small differences. So you can go see them in person if you want to. But anyway, this coin was quickly replaced by this one. So as you can see, Darnley and Mary's portraits have been removed altogether, and Mary's name has been placed in front of Henry's in the legend now. And the reverse design is quite weird. It shows a tortoise climbing up a crown palm tree. And a lot of possible interpretations have been put forward for this over the centuries. So it's popularly known as the Crookston dollar, as it's been said to depict the yew tree at Crookston Castle, under which Mary and Darnley courted. But this is a later 18th century fabrication. Plus, if you look at the coin, it's clearly a palm tree. Also, I should say as well, the tortoise is kind of difficult to see on this example, but if you look at the trunk of the palm tree just above where the date is, you can sort of see it there. But anyway, a more recent suggestion is that the crown palm tree represents the continuation of the Stuart dynasty. So Mary was actually pregnant at the time these coins were authorised in December of 1565. So it's been suggested that the tortoise symbolises Mary's pregnancy and her future child. And the tortoise is climbing towards the crown at the top of the tree, as it was hoped that one day Mary's child would ascend to the throne. So I suppose it ultimately symbolises the continuation of the Stuart dynasty in the person of Mary's child. And it's also just worth saying that there's an extremely rare 1566 dated real with the same design as this one on display in the exhibit, but it places Henry's name in front of Mary's. And to be honest, no one's really sure what to make of it. It could just be an engraver's error, which did happen every now and then, or it could be evidence of perhaps something more. So Henry Lord Darnley was murdered in February of 1567, and Mary is widowed for the second time in her life. And the coins are updated to reflect this. So you can see in this coin here that the design remains exactly the same as before. The only difference is that Henry's name and title has been removed from the coin, and Mary is now back to being referred to simply as Mary Queen of Scots. So Mary is forced to abdicate in July of 1567 in favour of her son, King James VI. Now, after failing to regain her throne, which culminated in her losing the Battle of Langside in May of 1568, Mary flees to England, and she'd never return to Scotland. And she'd be executed there 2 decades later. But this real upon the screen is it's also known as a sword dollar due to the design, is the earliest coin struck in the name of King James VI after his mother's abdication. And the reverse sword design and its legend refers to an event in which the Roman Emperor Trajan, shortly after assuming the throne, presented a sword to the prefect of the Praetorian Guard and commanded the guard to use it either for or against him, dependent upon his actions. So the message of this coin is that it was just to oppose and remove a tyrannous monarch, which Mary's enemies certainly viewed it as. And it's quite radical that coins, which are usually used to strengthen and promote a monarch's position, are now being used to spread the message that a monarch can be justifiably removed, which is arguably undermining the position and power of the very monarch that is named on the coin, James VI. And it's just worth saying that there are no other coins like this in the history of the Scottish coinage. I mean, this is unique, I think, in this regard. So it really is quite radical for the time. So many of the coins that we've looked at today are also on display in the exhibit. Not all of them, but a good amount. So if you haven't seen them already, do go and try and see them, because I think a lot of these coins you really do have to see them in person, because the photos usually don't do them justice. So if you've got the time, please go.